It's the Fresh and Friends podcast, and there's a great show coming right up.
Hello and welcome to the Fresh and Friends podcast. This time with me, I've got Dez and Ace. This isn't the first time that we've recorded this.
It's not the second.
It's not even the second. This will actually be the third time that we've tried to record a podcast. But technical issues delayed us on the first two times. So all that amazing content that we did, some of it's not relevant anymore because it was predictions.
I predicted everything correctly.
It's gone. But yeah, we all predicted every group correctly,
Perfectly.
including this one that's not yet finished. Yeah. How are you both anyway?
I'm good. Today's been good. It's been an intense week, to be fair. We've done 5 days of straight casting. Because we haven't had Hap or Guz out here, we've obviously been down a duo, so everyone's had to sort of fill in the gaps where necessary. So it's been 5 straight days of 2 best of 3s, and it does take its toll on you both, like your actual like physical tiredness. Like I feel exhausted after this now.
It's the end of the last day, and I'm like ready for a day off tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm ready for a beer. He was like, I'm going to bed. I was like, I'm going to the bar. There's 2 different kinds of people here.
Yeah, I am denying you your beer and you your bed right now. So
you are. So you best keep this snappy.
We will keep this reasonably short. Obviously, we're out at 6 Invitational, so it's nice to have a chat whilst we're all here in person in the boardroom of the penthouse, which is absolutely.
I keep getting distracted by the view. To be fair,
Mate,
really
you should see it during the day. It's so nice during the day. The other day when it was snowing as well, it was just it was incredible.
Good.
So what I wanted to talk about and the topic of this podcast episode is going to be talent work, particularly casting, because I've got 2 of the best casters in the world with me right now.
You're too kind.
Unfortunately, Pingu and Nintero are not available. No, I'm joking. I'm not going down that route. EU's premium duo, obviously you two. So how did you both end up in the casting world that you're in right now?
I'll keep it short because we'll be here for 10 minutes otherwise, each talking about this journey. Long story short, went to the Montfort University to do games programming, joined the Video Game Society there, really got into League of Legends, would like play it every day, all day during first year, wouldn't go to lectures, terrible example of a student. National University Sports League, or Newell as it was called, launched like a league. I started playing in that, realised I was a bit shit to be honest with you. And then when they came around saying one day, we're looking for casters, I was like, yeah, I'll give it a go. And then for about 18 months did it unpaid, just used to go along and do different events in like Leicester, like when we had time there, otherwise it was all online. And then I think naturally, as we all know for esports, one thing kind of leads to another is like the next event, someone saying to you, I've seen you doing this thing over here, we're doing this event at an arena in Birmingham and we need someone to come and do it, we'll give you a hotel and food. Then the next event it's like, we need you to go and do this event abroad and we'll pay you a few £100 a day to go and do it. Then you're being offered to go and live, like I was in 2018, in Ukraine for about 6 months doing Overwatch, which was wicked, like favourite experience of my life, really, really fun. And then Siege. And here we are now. That's the short, abbreviated
That was
version.
a very short, abbreviated version.
I wanted to speed through the latter years. I could
League,
tell,
Overwatch, Siege.
That's basically it. And then I've done stupid things like CSGO and Rocket League and Hearthstone once or twice throughout that. Knew nothing about those games and really did learn the art of absolute bullshitting, which really helped in the early days of casting Siege when I knew absolutely fuck all about the game. Don't make the joke that I still don't, by the way. I know you want to say it.
It's not a joke.
I know you want to say it.
It's not a joke.
No, you want to say it. No, you want to say it.
All right. So, yeah, we've established that you know fuck all about the game. That's not a joke. Tim, what about you?
Slightly different approach, because obviously I was a lot older when I came into it. Des was like university age.
He was with the Zimmer frame.
Still, yeah. How old was I? I was probably about 33, 34 realistically.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's probably, people going to be watching this that might be of that sort of age and think it's too late. It's not. Just get involved.
I'm nearly that old now.
I know.
I'm a while off that.
I'm nearly 40. Don't worry, you'll be fine.
30 next month.
Not that far away.
Oh.
Sorry, Tim.
But anyway, so I kind of started through a content creator route, and it was kind of weird for me because I'd never really done anything like that. I've been into games like my whole life, but XR Troika and I started playing Siege. We'd been watching, Get Flank's YouTube channel, and he'd switched into Siege, so that got us onto that. And we ended up in his Discord, and there was a friendly tournament there, and we'd started our own YouTube channel, Enough is Enough, and we had a couple of thousand subscribers, and people kind of said, you obviously know a lot about the game, you've been breaking down the maps and stuff, why don't you give casting a go? We've got this tournament. So we did, and we had to learn loads along the way. It was a really good process because I learned how to make a thumbnail video, how to live stream, how to set up audio, all these things. And it kind of just went, I couldn't have planned from there to, you know, having done everything that we've done today, absolutely not a chance. The answer was just saying yes to stuff, turning up and just giving it a go and just learning along the way. And so it went to eventually getting CCS EU as a caster, and then that led on to being spotted for UK Prem and doing that alongside Demo and Ollie, and then Dez eventually, and then we started to become more of
and then
like...
the chaos really began.
It was more of the UK crew then that was doing like Epic Lands, UK Prem. We then moved on to Challenger League, and then naturally, as things expanded out of Poland, it was at the time, and obviously there was just the 4 doing a lot of the Pro League stuff. It then expanded and became like EUL, NAL, and there was a lot more opportunities there because everybody wanted their own sort of talent team. And that's then it was 2021 for me that the first full... 2020 was a good year. We did SI 2020, and then I did Brazil for 2 seasons with Jackie, but it was still kind of stage by stage that I was doing stuff. Whereas in 2021, I got an offer for the year, so I was able to quit my job because I had a bit of stability there, and you know, I could then move on and really commit to it. So
Joy of France, that was, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely loved Paris. I miss Paris an awful lot.
With no Max and Spencer.
Behind the scenes reference that one. Our makeup artist basically mocked us about Marks and Spencer,
not having a Marks and Spencer and
of all things to mock us about.
But yeah, Paris, I absolutely loved our time out there. And yeah, mine really was a story of not knowing what I was doing, saying yes and figuring it out. Like, I want to do a YouTube video. I don't know how to do it. Right, how do I do it? And just going and figuring it out, and you know, meeting a lot of people along the way who then naturally, like Dez said, it's we've got this other thing. Can you know, if you turn up with the right attitude, you work hard, you try to learn, and you're professional, people will ask you to do other stuff.
There's a big asterisk on that I'll talk about in a bit, I'm sure.
Okay, so how did Dez and Ace come about then? Because like you said, you started with Ollie, with XR Troika, and Dez started in Overwatch and then just turned up in Siege like a bad smell, and you've never left.
Yeah, so funnily enough, I came into Siege at the start of 2018 and I think I did most of Prem at the start of 2018. That was Xbox back then, that was. Casting like Horizon and things like that. Bloody hell, real throwback when I think about it.
Horizon Tristan.
But then I got that offer for Overwatch, and I was like, okay, well, look, it's more stable. Being frank, it pays more. I can actually make a living off that kind of money, so I need to go and do it. And then, what? Not a lot, to be fair. It wasn't a ton of money. It was enough that it was like, it paid rent.
You also would have had your business at this point.
Yeah, and that wasn't paying me a penny.
Yeah.
So
because that was early days.
That was early days. So the start of 2018 was when we basically got it all wrong. We're making basically no money. I was earning nothing from it, and 3/4 of our revenue was going towards paying server bills. It wasn't a lot of money at all.
Right. Okay.
And so while we were still figuring that out, I was like, I've got to earn a living. So I ended Overwatch after doing Siege for a little bit. Once I came back from Overwatch, because as far as I'm aware, they were going to move things somewhere else, or they were going to keep it in Ukraine. I was like, look, I've been there for 6 months, but I can't live with my partner there. I want to get a house at some point. I'd like to be back in the UK. Came back into it, and then it was I had 3 things I was doing, which was UK Prem, Nordic Championship, and then Epic LAN. And we met at Epic LAN, where we all worked together.
I think we'd already come across each other at Prem.
Passingly.
Yeah, passingly at Prem. I think you
I hosted
you
a couple of
DM'd
shows,
me,
didn't
you'd
I?
hosted and you DM'd me and said like, so we had spoken about it. It wasn't like completely new meeting you at Epic LAN, but we'd not like worked together at that point.
Our first big cast was that best of 3 at Epic LAN, 45
rounds, start as we mean to go on.
I tell you,
It never left us.
It's not a thing that's built on. It was there from day one. It was Lucendi versus...
Lucendi, I can't remember who they were against, but it was shattered on Lucendi.
Yeah, it was.
Your first cast properly was shattered.
Yeah, it wasn't a proper cast.
Should we try and find this on Wikipedia
when he was actually playing? Absolutely.
I'm
it might be listed there.
Shattered. That was a good 45-round game, and that was like the start of it. Where I was like, we worked pretty well together. Like me, Tim, and Ollie all did, to be fair.
Yeah, we were just like mixing in and out.
And it really got cemented when it came to later that year, and OGA Pit came around, and there were 8 casters going out there. That no one was really working in assigned duos at that time, except for like M and Demo. I think had worked together quite a lot.
Yeah.
And I think I was meant to work with, I want to say Sternab at that event at first. Hap was going out there, and I think originally was going to be with Tim. And then there was a little last minute kind of shuffle around of things. I ended up working with Tim instead. And then from there, things went really, really well. And I was chatting to people at Ubi behind the scenes that I'll talk about again a bit quite happily.
Really, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's where there was a bit of proof of what we could do. And then that's when SI then followed, 3 months later? And then the rest is history.
SI 2020.
So just before we get to SI, your first cast...
it was Horus, I'm pretty sure.
Your first...
Horus versus Lucendi.
No, it wasn't Horus. Well, it might have been. But the grand final was Eminem Gaming against Lucendi.
What was the 45-round game? was a 45-round game in there somewhere.
At
you
that
think it
event
was
was
Lucende?
where Eminem were putting the roster
Horace
together.
Lucende.
See, I'm so good at this.
Horace?
I still remember.
Horace being the team that one of my early
Yeah, I was
teams
going to
as
say
well.
you were involved with Horace.
So that
at
Horace
a point.
roster was Kixer, Kimbe, Boogie, Turtle, and Keezer.
Yeah, Mercer's coach, our old boy.
Lucendi at that point in time was Reese, Turks, Shattered, Shady, and Hobbit.
Yeah.
Eminem Gaming went on to be quite successful.
Doki.
Nello, Citizen, Fonkers, Doki, and Gig that ultimately then became the Navi roster that won a Pro League finals.
Yeah, that's when they were putting the roster together, really. It
I
was
hate to
like
say
the
that our
first-
casting was what elevated to those levels, but it probably was us.
It was the first
probably
event
was.
that they'd like turned up and done. And,
Yeah, wild event.
Yeah.
It was good fun.
Okay, so you guys got Six Invitational
Yep.
before
2020.
you'd worked Tier 1.
Yep.
How the hell did that come about?
A lot of away from casting networking skills.
Okay.
This comes into like casting tips in a way, and like my general philosophy on it is like when you ask a lot of casters for like their tips, and no one's wrong in answering this way. Like they'll give you tips on the actual casting itself, like how do you get better, your VOD review, whatever it might be. You put post-it notes around your monitor to focus on the things that you want to improve on, yada yada yada. I think there's probably a side of casting that not many consider, and many actually get wrong today, which is how you then manage professional relationships away from casting, how you present yourself, like how you chase things up. And an example, you'll probably know, I've definitely said it to you during like the one-up work that we do together at some point, and we've spoke about this at some point, is to get someone in business to respond to you in like a sales perspective, it's taking at least 8 touch points, whether it's like LinkedIn, text, email, phone calls, whatever it might be. You really have to keep going until someone will actually come back to you. But I think in esports, the problem is a lot of casters or would-be talent make a show reel, chuck it on their Twitter profile, pin it, and go, sweet, my work's done. They'll find me. Like I think it's a really good show reel. They'll definitely come and find me. But people fail to really consider the other side of people who are actually hiring you, the tournament organizer. They've probably got a full-time job, probably a good few of them in smaller organizations that you're going for part-time. So not going to be sitting there for hours a day, scouring through Twitter, checking out caster profiles. There's a very good chance that they've got a million other things to think about when it comes to a tournament, such as, who's the admin looking for this? What are the teams that we're getting involved? Oh, there's a player issue. Oh, the venue's causing an issue for us. All these things build up. Talent probably is honestly super low down on the list of things they care about. So if you can reach out to them and make yourself more seen and more present in front of those people in the right manner, not being like a really demanding or like really subservient sort of style to it, but professional about it, professionally persistent, I call it. I think there's a much better way that you can then be in a serious conversation and be front of mind when they think about you in a positive way for you to be in the consideration. And the guy at Ubisoft at the time, like I think I messaged him first in the middle of 2019. And I went and worked DreamHack with Stokes, Milosh and Flynn, speaking to this guy. And I think it was during SI 2019 of that year where I was first interacting with this guy on Twitter, and he followed me back and exchanged a few DMs. I was like, look, if you are looking for other talent in the future, I'd love to like have a conversation what that looks like. Here's a few VODs of what I've done. Didn't have a show reel, didn't care to put one together, but here's a few clips of what I've done if you want a few examples. Honestly, I hate show reels. Just got a few examples and put them together.
This guy.
No, I just think they're largely pointless because you're showing someone the very, very best moments of you, and it's kind of like, yeah, cool, but how are you actually in flow? Like, show them a few minutes of you casting and actually get a real rhythm for how you work with someone else and the different facets of your casting rather than picking out a 5-second snippet of you going super hype. Like, yeah, cool. Lots of casters can do it. So had that conversation with him, and I was like, look, if you're looking for someone, I'd love to have the chat. And it was more of a right time, right place thing too, where he was like, cool. We are looking for the talent around the world to maybe work in our larger leagues as well. Obviously, I think Tokonami was just coming up around that time as well. I was a bit late to that, which I was gutted about because I'd love to go and work that. But when I did Dream at Valencia, and then we just kept on talking beyond that point because he thought I did a good job. And then when SI came around, there was a whole larger chat around whichever duo does SI, we need them to be able to come and do basically a full-time job out in Paris working on EUL or what would become EUL. We need X, Y, and Z commitment. Do you feel that that's what you can do? And I just responded to that as professionally as I could, like, here's how I can address those things. I've got a business, I'll be honest with you, but here's how we approach it. And then from there, the offer came through about 4 days later, and here we are.
Here we are.
And it's just that nature of, again,
And Dez walked me up to tell me.
I woke him up at like 11:45 at night when the email came in. I was like, you seen your email?
Did you call him?
Like, yeah.
Rang me.
Rang him.
Yeah.
Didn't just message him, fuck that. Rang him and he was in bed half asleep and he was just like,
Literally.
what? I was like,
Fully
right,
asleep.
what's up, mate? And I was like, have you seen your emails? He was like, no. I was like, We've got SI, and what was your response?
Fuck off.
And Tim's not really a big swearer, so I really pissed myself.
Yeah,
and yeah,
that
we
was
flew out
the
there,
response.
did a great group stage, really enjoyed it. Stayed out for the next week as well, in a little crappy Airbnb with a shit TV and
Tell
no
you what,
internet.
that was
Brilliant.
that's probably still one of the bizarre moments was going from, because we did the group stages and we did a little bit of content as well. Usually when you come out to these events, you'll do like a little, a bit of media day or interview or whatever, and we've done a little bit of content. Obviously with it was Michael and Parker were there, and Stokes and Blue
Was that we
were
were
there.
also like thought?
Yeah, we were like, and
boxing
they like, filmed
made
it through like a semi-transparent veil.
Yeah, I remember.
But so I was already attending SI 2020 as I'd bought a ticket. I was going as a fan. So we went along to the event still, and like seeing this stuff up on the big screen, and it was an hour content, and like hearing ourselves around the arena on the replays from like the early stuff. What a motivator! Like it's it really drove me to then think, right, I need to get the next step now. I've done the group stages, but I want to be casting in here. I want to be actually doing the live final stuff. So yeah, 2020 was a huge experience, and it was really, really good.
It definitely took a turn, didn't it? Because we thought, based on the conversation I had, I thought after SI we'd just jump straight into doing EU. I was like, yeah, sweet, we're in EU. And then there was like a whole different talent roster.
It's another important lesson that things don't always go to plan. It
and
was like you
can't,
kind of thought,
especially if you've been asked for potentially that commitment.
Yeah,
in
and we
advance.
thought maybe we'll be into EUL, but
it
didn't happen like that. And Dez got a little bit of work in EUL to what I think you did the last few weeks of EUL on the stage one. I didn't do anything
that
stage
was like
one.
right time, right place. Because Ivanek had to step out because he was still working with Navi, so I took his slot in the team.
So you did a few weeks at the end of it. I didn't do anything stage one, and then they asked me to do stage 2 and 3 Brazil with Jackie remote because COVID had hit by that point. So then I think you did some EU remote.
I did.
So we kind of ended up separated.
That's with Jess most of that, I think,
Yeah, so like Jackie and I, it was a really good show we had for Brazil because we just had producer Simon, one person doing replays,
Simon
and then Jackie,
Bond.
Simon Bond.
and then Jackie and I. So we kind of like Jackie taught me some really valuable stuff. He was like, I think you're a great caster, but let's just have just don't worry about the game. Like we'll be back. Like let's have a bit of fun. And like Jackie's great for that. He's such an entertainer, and he's a great caster as well. And so we had a lot of fun on the Brazil show. But all I think it really did as well by embracing my point to do that is I embraced that opportunity that maybe wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. Like this EU opportunity, but I went with that, embraced that, and ultimately it led me back to an offer in 2021 to we want you to come and do a UL for the year. Ta-da. So and then I could quit my job. So it was.
We definitely said this on one of the last recordings as well. But originally, I think it was him and Jackie were invited to come back and do EU as a pairing.
Yeah.
But Jackie wanted to go and do CS quite fairly. He's keeping himself very busy, that's for sure. And that's how we then ended up being reunited.
I do think. So I have a habit from time to time where I get deep in YouTube archives and I end up watching like random games from random times. But also I watch a lot of just like the biggest moments of Siege all the time. If it's just something to put on in the background. Whenever a Jackie clip comes on, and there's one that I can think on Clubhouse, can't remember the team, but it's an incredible clutch. I'm just like, he's such a good caster.
He's a poet.
He's
such a word poet.
It's like Jackie. Listening to rap music, but it's about Siege during a cast. It's like and this is nothing on
because
any of
he's
our
not
other
in
casters.
Siege.
He's so good.
And I think I'm pretty sure Jackie would allow me to use these lines. I steal a couple of Jackie's lines from on the way.
Mop it up like a spilled drink.
Mop it up like a spilled drink.
So going to abandoned theme park.
That is one. That's one of Jackie's. An abandoned theme park. They've nothing to go on. That's another one of his. Or Slays with the AK from far away. That's one that Jackie always used to love.
The one that really rung out from Jackie the first time was Moosey, the human Uzi. That was the one that really was just like. My favourite line, I put it on Twitter because I got a clip of it, because I remember just saying, this is just the funniest shit in the world. It was you two going back and forth on a coastline game.
Yeah.
And you were talking review.
Taking your girlfriend to coastline. It was so funny. She gets air jabbed into the pool. Luggage goes everywhere.
Piss myself.
It was so funny.
I'll have to dig it up
we had
and
repost
it.
We did have a right
bits watching that little segment.
Find it because we'll show it on here.
It was a lot of fun with Jackie. So I do roll out.
You pause it now, you interject it now.
And I can see this one not doing very well. I can see a cold pool being the absolute least of the worries when there's bullet holes in the walls, there's no beds, or there's one bed in the entire place. It's not good.
I mean, to be fair, imagine that, right? You get a nice little, villa resort. You tell your girlfriend you're going away, you're going to Ibiza, it's going to be a lovely trip. You walk up towards the front door. She gets air jabbed. You see her go flying into the pool. All of her clothes are wet. Her phone's broke, and you're just sat there like, well, what am I meant to do now?
Horror of horrors, Jackie. You finally get inside, you find nobody on reception to check you in, so you go and find your own room. You think, I know, we'll watch a bit of TV. You head into the VIP room, you sit on the sofa, Jackie, and you get a crick in your neck because it's not pointing at the TV.
Right, no, honestly, at some point they do need to move that sofa because it does really annoy me. It does bother me, Tim, the way that sofa's facing. It's not a reason for feng shui. It physically can't be.
Yeah.
And then we come back and we keep talking. There
I
you go.
I do roll out one or two of Jackie's lines occasionally as a little homage to his humour.
What a hero.
Yeah,
So
I do
very,
like
very
it.
funny. We did Mexico with Jackie. He hosted
the pans.
the remote stuff
I
of
said this
Mexico.
in the last time in the failed recording. That pans episode.
That was a lot of fun.
Like,
I love how I think our viewership bumped up by like 5,000.
The three of us was just chaos.
Because we were there for a half hour. It just turned into a half-hour podcast
just
about
chatting
utter
shit about
bollocks.
pans.
We were talking about paint and ladders and pots and pans and all
I
sorts of
couldn't even
shit.
remember. I'd like to go. I'll go back and watch it one day.
Yeah,
It was
I was driving home from work when you was having that because I was just working 9 to 5, whatever. I was like, yeah, let's get the Mexico Major on. Like, it'll be great.
Yeah.
Dez and Ace are on, and Jackie's there, and I was like, I didn't watch it. I was driving, but it was coming through obviously the audio, and I was like, I was crying.
Yeah.
I was driving over the Humber Bridge. I remember I was just crying.
yeah, I
how
think
funny that was.
The whole point to it for me there is things might not always take the line that you want them to or that you plan them to. Say yes to the opportunities that are there and work it out. Go and do your best with it.
Be a good person. Network your ass off.
Go and do a good job. It might even be that it's an opportunity that's not casting. It might be we need somebody to do replays. You might think it's not exactly what I want to do, but you're going to be around the right people.
Yeah.
And when they say we need some casters, all right, cool. I wanted to try that.
Yeah.
And you trusted.
You
worked with them.
You also get the breadth of experience of how a production runs, which is obviously
so much
deeply
appreciation
technical
for
thing.
it.
Yeah.
Great example of that is like I did observing for PUBG. Just randomly, they had a global invitational event down in London.
I remember you doing that. Actually,
To be fair, it paid like a few $100 a day, and I was like, well, I'm complaining about that for an observer gig. It's brilliant, sure. Went down there, was there for like 2 weeks doing it. That's where the infamous picture came from.
Which one? Huh? Which one?
PS4.
Oh, the PS4 picture.
That's where it came from.
We won't put that on the podcast.
Let's not put that on the podcast. But that was through Faceit, and naturally in Siege we ended up working with Faceit for a time. So just by taking that gig in a completely different game, doing a role I don't normally do, just through knowing a few people as well, like you end up drawing connections and knowing people, and they actually come and start working the game. It's like, oh, remember from that event we met there, didn't we? Oh yeah, cool. Nice to meet.
The thing is, it is a small world, and you
then.
do like go and you'll be, and you have no idea, but you'll turn up at a job and it'll be a producer you worked with 6 months ago. And you're like, oh, cool, nice to see you.
This happens all the time.
It does. It happens all the time.
I mean, even at this event, like we've turned up, and our old producer from the
Paris
Paris studio, Bruno, is here working the Beast Room
so
and producing that.
It just goes to show that just going and doing a job that maybe you don't think is going to lead anywhere. It's just a little bit of experience. You meet somebody who meets somebody else who's on another job, and it's, actually, I remember them saying that they were interested, and that is,
hit them up,
how things work.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. So, you talked about networking, Derry. How do you find the right line? Because obviously, the three of us here, I would say we're very good friends. Me and Tim are very good friends.
Area, honestly.
The three of us are very good friends. We're also colleagues, but also at the same time, networking opens doors, but at the same time, you don't want to piss people off by essentially indicating that you're trying to use them to get work.
For sure. And
given you're the networking one of the duo.
It really is.
I feel like I'll ask you.
Des looks after me.
I'll do my best. I think if you've worked an office job, like you've worked previously in finance, you'll know about this kind of stuff. Like there's a certain level of
I could get out.
There's a level of like decorum and like a mode or sort of like a tone to communications that like you have to look and adopt, right? And I look back and think about the communications generally I've had through esports. Like you're not speaking to someone who, as bad as it sounds, a lot of casters come in, they're 18 years old, probably not really had a job before, and their style of communication is very casual, somewhat informal, maybe not to the professional standard you'd expect in a world of work.
Yeah.
The people that you're speaking to are hired by companies, Ubisoft being a great example, who have proper corporate hiring processes. They go out there looking for professionals. They're not just going to hire someone based on passion. they are likely professionals who have got a decent amount of experience in an area they're going to, especially if it involves managing a lot of people or working with different partners. And I guess to give a really good example to, they're not going to watch the podcast, I don't mind saying, like Riot, when we were trying to get in to do some Valorant a couple of years ago in 23.
Riot might watch my podcast.
They may well do. Calm down now.
I'm a big deal.
One day they'll come back and watch it.
They will.
They won't mind me telling the story because we've had a good chat about it anyway. It's like, I wanted to get in doing some Valorant in 23, and I was like, cool, got to find out who actually is responsible for this. So I asked the caster that I knew that was working in League of Legends, who are the key contacts to do with talent in Valorant, if you know who they are, and fortunately they did. Found their email address online, just Googled their name and the company they work at, found the email address, easy enough. And emailed them, just an email, I said, look, here's the intro. It was actually at the time we were doing the Berlin Major in 22, middle of 22. Shot them an email saying, look, we're in Berlin. I know you guys have got a studio there and you're all based there. Would you like to grab a coffee while I'm over there? That is literally all I said. I didn't say anything about, I'd love to work with you. Here's my show reel. Please read this 10-paragraph long email about why I'd be amazing to work with. It was just a quick intro to say, look, I'd love to speak to you about Valorant moving forward. I've heard you might be expanding your talent pool, because I've heard they were. Do you want to get a coffee? Didn't reply to it. A week later, went back again with a second email kind of just saying, just reminding you I'll be there in case you've missed it, in case it's dropped down your inbox. Didn't reply to that one. Sent a third one 2 weeks later. This is actually when we were at the event, I'm pretty sure, and just said, look, I'm out here now, like, I'm here for another 4 or 5 days. If you've got time this weekend, it'd be cool to do it. Yeah. And great final, by the way, because they just had their finals for one of their events. So I was like, great final, it looked like it went really well. Showing that you care about their world, I think is quite important as well. That it's not just about you and your needs, also being considerate of what's going on in their world. And after the fourth email, because I sent him another one after the event, and they didn't come back to me again, I was like, right, something's happening here. And that is where people will either give up after the first email, the second, the third, or the fourth. I was like, right, let me find out what's going on. So again, got in touch with the caster who works in League of Legends, and I was like, hey, I'm sure you know these guys because they're talent managers. Do you know why they wouldn't be responding? Or can you help, or just give them a nudge or something like that? Even I gave them a nudge, and then they came back to me about a week later, just like, really sorry, your email's in spam. And I was like, that explains an awful lot. Either I write a hell of a lot of shit and it all goes into spam, or their spam filters are very aggressive. But either way, justified why they didn't reply. And they said, like, look, not sorting it out right now. This was in, like, I think August, September time. And I was like, cool, understood. Not sorting it right now. When will you make a decision? I asked the question for when to next follow up, basically. And they're like, oh, we'll be having these conversations around November, December time. I was like, okay, then I'll follow up in 2 or 3 months. For now, have a wonderful rest of your year. Emailed them in November, December, like, oh, we had not actually decided yet. I was like, cool. Emailed again a month later because they'd said back then in the previous email, we'll be deciding over the next month or so. Emailed and said, oh, okay, cool, actually, yeah. Let me introduce you to our talent management agency who will book you in for a few dates.
Cool.
And that was it. And that was ended in VCT EMEA. But so many times along that journey are points where people would have given up or not thought to follow up or set a reminder to get in touch or been too pushy with the first email, right? Nothing was ever really aggressive on my side about saying, here's all the clips of me and here's why it'd be great for you to work with and blah, 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 blah. It all started with, I've heard that you guys are looking to expand your talent roster and figured I'd reach out. That was as simple as it had to be. And that was the same case with Siege. It's how I landed into the ESL Prem, the Nordic Championship, and Epic LAN in the space of 2 weeks or so. It was all through those like softer outreaches. And no one else is doing it. People post a show reel or post on Twitter that they're open to work and it's like, cool. 90% of the time, a CEO is going to see you, have no idea who you are unless you're a mega popular like international caster or talent member, analyst, host, whatever.
And at that point, they know they're going to want you rather than looking at a show.
They're all
because they know you've got caliber and they want you in there because they know you bring an audience with them. Most of us aren't going to do that, so you need to be going to them, and just not enough people do it. But like you said, there's also a decorum to it. Don't just go out there begging for gigs or always having an agenda because that way it just shows and it smells bad, and you're just like, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to talk to that person. No, thank you. There's a quick run through. There's loads more, but I'll be here all day otherwise talking about it. We're going for hours about this because I've seen it done wrong so many times as well. Yeah. Crazy.
So you are like the professor of how to become a caster then?
Not really. It's how to blag being a caster.
How to blag
That's what I'm
being a
really good at
caster.
doing. That's what I'm really good at
How
doing.
to fake it until you make it.
I've said this a lot. People are always like, oh, you play yourself down. But I genuinely believe this. Like, I think there's 3 things like in casting that people probably evaluate on. One is like game knowledge, obviously. Like pro players get brought up into being talent members when they maybe don't have the best on-camera persona or they're not the best at casting because they have this expertise, which is really good. That's one side of it. Another is like your voice, your play-by-play. You think about like, I was speaking to someone earlier on about like Flynn, for example. Silky smooth voice in Siege. Like I think he's an amazing caster because he's got that perfect voice for it. Not that his game knowledge is bad, he's a former pro, of course he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Another piece of it being really candid is like looks as well. People like will get gigs because they look good on camera and because they want people to look good on camera. It makes your show look strong. It's exactly why you get so much work, mate.
That's why I'm losing so much fucking weight.
Exactly. it does count for things. It really does count for things. Like, I'm not being funny, but if like you're really overweight, like you don't cut your hair or don't like look after yourself, it sounds bad, but you're not good to look at on camera.
Yeah.
And you will lose gigs as a result of that. Why do you think most talent members you see on like big international events are dressed up nice and are like well groomed or whatever? It's for that exact reason. But like my game knowledge isn't amazing. My play-by-play voice certainly isn't the strongest that we have in the game, and I look okay, but I'm nothing special for sure. I think where I have that force strength is in the ability to network around the casting itself. So although my fundamentals might not be as strong and like one for one I might not be as strong as other casters, I genuinely think a lot of my strength and where I get to where I am and maintain that is through the professional side of it around it too. I won't say I'm a shit caster by any means, but I'm not like top #1 in the world, like world beating, like no one comes close. I'm not that level. Everything else that surrounds it though, I think I do well.
I will say, just from an outside perspective, I think you guys have the ability to make any dreary shit game of Siege very, very interesting.
You know why that is? Because I'm unprofessional as fuck. I love taking things off topic.
Very, very exciting. You know, I'm not saying today's game was shit, but that PSG Talon game certainly, because
That was unreal.
where the analyst was sat is right next to the B room.
I feel sorry for you about this
Area.
event. You got to listen to him screaming next door.
Very round one of PSG, I was hearing Tim scream his lungs off, and I thought, we're in for a couple of hours here.
More than a couple,
Lock
it was
in.
3 hours, weren't it? in the
Well,
end?
I think, you know, I've
Great game.
always said the same about games like that today. There was a huge story there, and it certainly wasn't to play down BDS whatsoever. They played very, very well. But the obvious and exciting story is this team that nobody expects anything of started looking like they were doing something. The dream might be alive. And you can sell an emotion and you can sell dreams like so easily.
That's
And
the key thing. Yeah.
That's what, and I always say, and it's probably not true. I look at games like that, and to me, they're easy to cast.
Yeah.
Like, it's the easiest game to cast. And people will come to me and say, "Oh, you did such a good job on that game. It was so exciting. It was so hard." And to me, it's just so natural. And that's probably part of why I'm in the position that I'm in, because it is, to me, it just seems like, what else did I need to do? I'm excited by the game and the story.
Yeah.
I found the emotion in it, and you know, and it just pours out of me.
It hooks people, doesn't it? Brings them in.
That is what hooks people.
So I think people get this really wrong, where it's like people always want to be the most like polished, refined caster, and there's a few like in Siege like that aren't at the tier 1 level that have asked for feedback, and I've been like, I don't know what makes you different. I don't know what sets you apart from others or makes me want to be invested in what you're telling me. Like they can be the best host in the world or the best caster. They've got the awesome voice. They know the game. But there's nothing that really makes them them. And you think about all the casters and like analysts that we have at this level. I think everyone has got something unique about them that makes them makes them unique. It makes them stand out for their own reason. They're all very, very competent at their areas that they work in, but there are loads of others that are also competent at what they do.
Yeah.
It's what sets people apart, I think, is in being a bit unique. And like Tim, for example, as we all know, just some days I cannot be arsed with how excited he is about anything. And I'm just like, Tim, your optimism is actually burning a hole in my brain. Please, can we just call this game a shit game and get it over with? But he's there just like, he'll just jump up and down and be super excited no matter what. And the best thing is, that lifts me up then, because then I get into a higher energy spirit, and then I start feeling more chaotic, and then we start derailing things. Yeah. And that is where the really kind of like, it's not like informal, but it's definitely not as hyper polished as you'd see other casters doing, because that's our style.
Yeah.
Like, you'd rather be two mates on a broadcast having a bit of a laugh together, getting overexcited about things. And like you said, it sucks you in, and that's what makes us a really good pairing, I think.
And I think that's important to note as well, is that you've just said there is like everybody at a tier 1 level has quite a unique attributes.
Your own way of doing it.
Their own way of doing it, and I think
you can't necessarily come in and look at me and say, right, I'm going to go and be as excitable and find the emotion and thrill in every game like Ace does, because it won't necessarily work for you.
Yeah.
It's got to be what comes from you, what is your thing.
And I think that's super important as well, because I suppose the general premise of this conversation was, if somebody was wanting to become a talent, wanting to get to this level, what are the things that they're going to do? And I think there's also, I suppose, maybe a little bit of a darker truth in this, that there are only a finite number of jobs at this level. If I look at my own job, in Tier 1 Rainbow Six, there are 4 English-speaking analyst positions.
Yep.
2 of them that exist inside of Europe, 2 of them that exist inside of North America. And it's, on an international basis, 4, 5, 6. Same with casters, there's a pool of 20 or so.
Well, there's
maybe slightly more.
There's a reason that we tend to know lots of casters in other games and things like that. And I talk to people and they'll be like, "Oh, I don't really watch Siege, but you know, I watch another, you know, I watch another esport," and it's like, "Oh yeah, I know such a body who does that, or I know such a body who does," and it's because there aren't very many of us in the country. You know, within say the UK, or even if you look globally, you know, you can extend it that far. But yeah, within the UK, you tend to know the majority of casters of different games and stuff because there aren't very many of us, and it's because it's competitive and there's only so many spots.
There's definitely been an explosion of like people who want to be casters or in talent, and it's not a bad thing at all. Like by all means, like shoot your shot, go for it. If you really want to commit to it, then by all means do. But I can think of a good few examples of like close friends over the last 2 years, or people that I just know through social media that have had to step back and go and take on full-time jobs or give it up entirely in some cases because they just you can't sustain yourself off like a very, very part-time living. And I'd say this is kind of a problem actually in Siege for a while, where there was so much talent being pulled in for different events that you would get like a very small amount of pay from it, and you couldn't make a full-time living doing it. So your answer then was either go and like do things like creating content, which is a very viable path. You do this really well, hence why we're on a podcast. It's very meta to talk about that. People can do streaming. You can obviously go and get yourself part-time jobs. You can work in other games. There's all kinds of things you can do to support yourself in that. But the number one thing I'd always say to anyone is just be aware that there is a very high chance, unless you've got the voice of God or you're a former pro, that you will not make tier 1 in esports commentary, analyst work, hosting, whatever. It's a really hard game to get into. Really hard.
And it's
there's a lot of things have to happen. Like I said at the beginning, I couldn't have, if you'd have said to me, draw me a path of how you're going to end up doing six invitationals, which is wild. This is the 6th one. Now. Absolutely wild that I didn't dream of doing one when I started. And if you'd have said to me,
then you met me.
You're gonna do 6 of these things. These things that you're sat at home in 2018, 2019 watching, traveling to Montreal to watch on your own dime. You're gonna do 6 of them. Draw me the path. What's each step going to be?
It's not linear.
I could never have told you. And that's, you know, a lot of things have to go your way. You've got to do things right, obviously, along the way. Like we've spoken about, you've got to find your niche. You've got to, you know, present yourself well, all the rest of it. But a lot of things have kind of got to fall in line. You make your own luck, don't get me wrong. But a lot of things have got to happen as well. Like, timing. And a lot of things have got to work out.
We couldn't repeat our path today
and
that we had 5-6 years ago.
No.
Because again, the scene is so much more bloated now. Like, there's a lot of different things going on. The pool of talent at the top level is smaller than it used to be before as well. And because the overall talent quality, I think, has risen over the years. This is not at all, by the way, in the front against like Milosh, Emzo, Parker, Kicks back in the day. But if you looked at other games back then, they were far more developed in terms of casting. And I've chatted to Parker about this. He won't mind me saying this. Like, we had a good few chats early on where I was like, you know, your energy needs to come up a little bit more. Like, you need to get me invested in the game more. And I think in those early days, because there wasn't so much talent density, it was easy to get involved and jump into it, in the same way it was for me with League of Legends back in 2014 or whatever it was. If I tried to get into League today, I'd have zero chance, because the quality in that game is ridiculous. Like, all around the world, it's crazy. Wouldn't even bother trying. And I'm saying with Siege, there is still a chance people can, but it's a lot harder than it used to be. Like, I don't think if I started at square one today, I'd be able to get to this point. It's a lot harder.
No, it's an absolute time and place thing for literally everything.
Which is why when a new game like Valorant came out, you saw a mad rush towards it. 'Cause everyone was like, oh, new scene, there's no talent in it. The problem is every talent was trying to be in it, so no one could actually get in it, right? It was crazy.
Yeah,
it's nuts.
Fair enough. I think we'll probably close out the podcast here, because if not, we'll be going on for hours and hours and hours.
It was meant to be a short one, but how long have we spoken for now?
37 minutes. Not actually
that bad.
I
think it's probably, I won't speak for you two, but I'm pretty sure you wouldn't mind me saying this.
To do now.
There's people that are probably going to watch this that do have questions, that do wonder about you know, how to do. I got a DM today after the PSG game that we did, after PSG Talon BDS, and it was probably because I'd just finished that game, they'd just listened to me, and I got a DM from somebody saying, you know, asking similar questions. How do I go about doing that? How do I improve? You know, and I would say genuinely, that's another thing, you know, wrapping up the podcast, we can't answer much more questions, but if you've got questions, feel free to reach out to people like us, send us a DM, you know, and we might not reply immediately, especially when we're in the middle of an event. Like, I've sent one back and I've said, it'll be tomorrow when I'm on a day off, but we will.
No, you're at the hockey tomorrow. Not allowed.
Oh, we are going to the hockey tomorrow.
we are.
But genuinely, that is, another thing to do. Speak to people like us. We're all, at the end of the day, we're all people. We've all got a Twitter. We've all got a whatever. Just send us a message.
Yeah.
And, if you approach us politely and say, oh, can you just give me a few pointers on this? Or can you just check out this short clip that I've got?
Please
don't send me a 2-hour
drop
game and I expect me to go through and review it all. But, here's a clip that I've done, or, can you just have a look at it? And, we do that quite often to help people out. So if you do have questions, feel free to, to reach out and ask.
It's the golden thing. You ask for generic advice or ask a generic question, you'll get a generic answer. If you really want focused feedback in a certain area or on something, know what it is you're asking for.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a big one.
Yeah, feel free to do it.
Yeah, and then same, if there's any questions, throw them in the Discord. I can get Dez and Tim back on pretty much any time.
Yeah. Sure.
And we can do a part 2 follow up to this if we need to.
Rattle absolute shit.
But no, absolutely. We'll wrap this up here. Thank you both for your time.
Thanks for having us.
I am praying, because this is the 3rd time that we've recorded this. I am praying that to the gods of OBS and to Apple MacBooks.
I ain't doing it again.
That we can save it down, because you're not doing it again. I've probably exhausted all of that goodwill. But yeah, thank you both for your time. And thank you at home for hopefully watching this podcast. Make sure you tune in for the next one. Thank you very much. Goodbye.